And some of them are really very aggressive. They showed me some videos. For instance, the Jews are walking on the streets and they are just mocking with them. They are just throwing snowballs on their heads. I didn't know that they were carrying out such conduct. They need to be compassionate, and if you are compassionate, they will also show you compassionate. If you approach them with love, then they will reproach you with love. You should be friends, really. Only a handful of people living there. And also, they are advocating Islamic union. It's really very important they are advocating Islamic union. It's really very important that officially they would like that to be established. This means that if there is Turkish-Islamic union, they would be living in peace in a reasonable way, so there is no need to dishonor people, no need to dishonor any nation. They need to live freely, they need to be respected, they need to be shown compassion, and also they should also be compassionate towards the Muslims. It's such a vast area, really, such a huge geography, and there is not many people there. The land is vacant. There is no need for pain, really. Then they will be so much surprised at all the pains that they have gone through. We have found that video that you were talking about. This is happening in Jerusalem. These are pious Orthodox Jews. They are just walking there. And the Palestinians, they are just humiliating them that way. Look at that way of conduct really against them. Is this how a Muslim behaves? Should they behave that way? Is it a proper way of action?
Onlar da çok efendiler, hiç karşılık vermiyorlar.
This is not a right way of action, and look at them. They name themselves to be Muslims. What shall we say to this? Should we just confirm this kind of behavior? God is teaching us that they are Jews. This is what we learn in the Quran. And God is teaching us that they will have a homeland in that area and they should be allowed to live freely. Why is there any reason to oppress them? And also, there are irreligious Jews. They are also tormenting these pious, devout Jews. And police is also doing the same thing. It's a great pity. It's a great sin. Israel is just causing mass slaughter against the Muslims. You should give up loving the Israelis. You are saying that they are carrying out mass slaughter against the Muslims. But look at Sisi in Egypt. He is mass slaughtering the Muslims. And also, many of the Islamic countries are giving support to him and saying that he's done a great job. And look at Palestine. They are killing one another. And also in Iraq, there are so many explosions. Is it Israel that makes those bombs explode in Iraq? Muslims are killing one another. And look at Assad. He's devastated the Muslims. And every day, he's killing children, women, and hanging them, slaughtering them, bombing them. And these friends of us, they don't see this. Israel is not carrying out those atrocities. These are the Muslims who are carrying these against the Muslims themselves. And Israel would never attack if they had not really found any threat against their own lives. This is what we have seen in history. And if they carry out anything abnormal, really, we warn them, and then they just move back. And that person who had made an error, really, in Israel, he just wrote a letter to me saying that he was asking for an excuse and he had done something wrong. And they just give explanations of their acts. They are not brutal people. They are not ruthless ones. And after our statements, the deputies from Israel, we can really understand that they are speaking with reasonable terms. They are trying to show Israelis as if they are savage people. And this is definitely a great lack of love inside your hearts. You are loveless. And then they start hating the Christians. Then in the churches, they just bombed them, they just mass slaughtered them in the churches. And also in Turkey, they just killed the Christians. And they also hate the communists. They just go and kill them, drown them with tying cables in their throats. And this is all kinds of savagery, brutality. You should know how to approach them with compassion and with mercy. For instance, if you just describe a Jew from the Torah, they can really understand that. And it writes that they need to love the neighbor, and whoever your neighbor is. You can just remind these statements to him, and you may talk to him. There is no need for policies of hatred. They are always after hostility, hating the Armenians, hating the Romans, Orthodox, hating the Russians, hating the Arabs, calling them filthy. And the communists also, they are doomed to be killed according to their mindset. And the Christians, they need to be just put on the wall. They should be expelled from the streets, and also the Jews, the stones should inform that they have them at their behind and they need to be killed. This is a kind of hatred and enmity, and what will happen to these people with this mindset? Just live with love and try to understand what you will lose if you live that way. They don't ever come close to love. You should be compassionate, you should be merciful, you should try this, because God loves compassion. God loves having love for people, because that is, God is Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. God is Rahman. He's compassionate, He's merciful. God is Ghaffur. And surely Muslims should be accepting the attributes of God, and there are only a handful of Jews. They are going to Spain, they are being expelled from Spain, they are coming to Turkey again, they are trying to oppress them, they are going to other places, they are expelled all the time, and they wanted to have a homeland somewhere, and they don't want them to have a homeland. And if they just go on the streets and provinces, they are being beaten, they cannot live anywhere, and we know that Hitler just tried to put them in concentration camps and turn them into soup. And this savagery, really, against the Jews. And how can Muslims come close to this kind of savagery or admire it? And God's teaching us in the Quran that Muslims may get married to Jewish women, and you can eat their food, you can visit their houses, you can be their guests, and sit on the same table and get married with them. So that Jewish lady becomes your wife, and you are talking about slaughtering them, cutting them. They are not savage people that you cannot get in contact with. They have fear of God, and they also have love of God. And also Christians, they also have love of God, but what we find in the Jews is they have love of God and also they have fear of God. You may approach them from the Torah. And also they don't find the Muslims to be disbelievers. They find them to be Bnei Noah. This means that they have faith and they may go to paradise. This is how they believe. They don't find Muslims to be disbelievers. This is very important information, because Muslims are found to be Bnei Noah. This means that they are following the path of Bnei Noah and they are practicing the commandments that come from Bnei Noah. This means that Muslims are found to be believers, faithful people by Jews. And also they eat kosher, but when they cannot find kosher really, they eat from the lawful food of Muslims. You need to have compassion. There is no need for such violence, such savagery, this kind of insanity. And there's no reason for this, because in my childhood, people were just always saying that Jews are this, Jews are that, and when you hear that a person is Jew, really, you just make a few steps back. People were concerned to come close to Jews. And as if it was a slander when somebody was told to be an Armenian. They would say, this person is an Armenian. He's a servant of God. He's from the people of the book. And God is teaching us that Christians are close to the believers because of their affection. And you can get married with them, and they become your wives. And also the Armenian community were named to be Millet-i Sadıka, the righteous community at the time of the Ottomans. And look at their understanding, and look at the hostility policy that we find in our day. How can they make this mindset, really? Where do they find this understanding? Because we were brothers. With the Jews and with Orthodox community, we were also living as neighbors with them. We were living as neighbors with the Armenians, and we have none right now.